Welcome to the Modern Yogi Podcast. An exploration of ancient wisdom.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. We are on episode number
64.
This is exciting. It's an exciting time because today we are also starting chapter 9.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I was told that that's not the halfway point. We have to wait until the end of chapter 9. I was told multiple times because I don't know how to do math that we have to wait until the end of this chapter and then we will be at the halfway point of this beautiful book.
That's so exciting, though.
Yes.
Almost halfway.
Yeah, we've been on this journey for a while together. It just gets sweeter and sweeter, much like this transcendental knowledge we're discussing. And welcome to everyone who has been joining us. I feel like, more and more people are starting to listen to us, which still feels surreal. We always talk about how, we started this as something that we just so deeply believe in. We're so passionate about. And as it started catching on and more people started coming by the thousands, we're like, oh my gosh, people listen to us, you guys.
Thousands.
By the thousands.
I thought it was just my mom listening to this podcast.
I know. Our mamas are our biggest fans.
And then people are messaging us. And if you are listening, please DM us from where you are located.
That would be
we
awesome.
love knowing where you're from.
Oh my God,
we get
yes.
DMs from New Zealand, Portugal, South Africa,
crazy.
India. Please let us know if your country wasn't mentioned in the list right there. Please DM us and let us know where you are listening to our podcast from.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for following along. My name is Shama Sangeeta.
My name is Priyadarshini.
And I'm Shamali, and we are the Modern Yogi Podcast. And behind the scenes, we have, I told you, podcast. I'm late to the show. Behind the scenes, we have Abhijit, who is in charge of all of the techie tech stuff that
Our
totally
producer.
goes above our head, our producer. And we have our social media manager, the Queen, Ella. Woo! And none of this would be possible without them. We just like to think of ourselves as the dream team that kind of just came together with divine intervention. Priya birthed us. She hates me saying it in that way.
She birthed us.
She birthed us. Mother Priya. No, I'm sorry. I'll think of a better way to say that. Okay. Anyway, and then everything else just fell into place. It all kind of just came together very magically. So thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
Yes, thank you so much. And what's wonderful about where we are now in the Gita is that this is the secret chapter. Yeah, it is called
secret.
The Most Confidential Knowledge.
Secret. That was cool. That was really cool.
And already these middle 6 chapters of the Gita deal all with bhakti yoga, with the sweetest topics, but specifically chapter 9 is a very confidential, the most confidential chapter. And that will be revealed as we dissect it, why it is the most confidential chapter.
It's a secret.
Are we just going to whisper the whole episode?
We're going to whisper the whole chapter.
You would love that. Whisper.
I'm just joking. We're not going to whisper the whole chapter.
And
we're not doing
with
that.
the whole jewel box analogy, right? That the first 6 chapters.
Yes, the jewel box analogy.
The jewel box,
okay.
yes.
Here we go again.
Shamali's favorite analogy.
No, I was just going to say one thing because I've already said that analogy a ton of times.
Yes.
So listen to our previous episodes. But these middle 6 chapters are the jewel inside the jewel box. So it's like the most precious, especially this chapter.
I
The
can't
jewel
wait to
of the
find
jewel.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The jewel of the jewel.
Yeah. Can't wait to find out what it's all about.
I can't wait to hear that analogy again.
Okay, I'll say it next episode. Shut up.
No doubt.
Perfect. And so are we ready for the invocation, ladies?
Yes.
All right.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Translation. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual teacher opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances onto them.
And those invocation prayers, it's not just something we say here when we're about to record the podcast. Last night I was going through reading what we were about to do, and I was alone in the living room, and I said those prayers because basically we're trying, before you read the Gita, you try to tap into the wisdom of the parampara, the whole existing lineage of teachers and disciples, teacher-disciple that come before you, and you're tapping into that for realization. Like, please help me tap into the wisdom, into the confidential knowledge of these texts, because we can read it and be the most philosophically apt person, but if it doesn't really sink in and become realization, it's just we're book smart. We're not we don't know how to apply this, how to live by this. This is wisdom that infuses every aspect of our lives. So those prayers are trying to allow us to really uncover the secrets of these texts.
Yeah. Prabhupada says from the very beginning that in order to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we need to ask for our teachers to guide us in this process, right? And we got to learn from someone who is open and interested in learning about Krishna. So it's like, Krishna, please help us understand this the best way that we can. And thank you to everyone before us who's guided us to this point to make it right. So this moment where we sat right here in front of each other and we're like, learning more about Krishna and sharing about Krishna.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, we can be book smart, but are we heart smart?
Oh, were you like waiting to say that? I saw you smiling.
Just came to me.
You're
That's
a genius.
awesome.
Boom. We have a little mic drop from Abhijit. Are we heart smart?
We can be
Heart
book smart, but are we heart smart?
Oh, leave it to you to come up with the
Love it.
catchphrases.
That's really good.
I do love it. And she is running on 2 hours of sleep, might I say.
I literally just got off the plane from Toronto. I'm on 3 hours of sleep, but I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Genius just spews out of you. And I'm excited to be here with you guys too. I love you guys.
All right, chapter 9, text number 1, Priyadarshini.
Ooh. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the mysteries of material existence."
All right, one more time, Priya.
Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Krishna said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved." I can't read that sentence properly. Is there a better way of saying it?
No. Just put a comma. Just say comma.
Comma.
Yeah.
Knowing which you shall be relieved of the mysteries of the material existence.
So I feel like if you know this, if you understand this knowledge, and the key word there's and realization, Krishna's going to give Arjuna the realization. Once you have this realized knowledge, then you will be relieved of the miseries of material existence.
Can I tell you something? Just a story real quick about that. So I was talking to a friend. I know, me and my friends. I was talking to a friend and she's a teacher, and she was talking about how she had to do professional development. And she was like loving it because she was learning so much and it was really useful and she was taking notes and everything was great. And then they come to kind of like the later part of the day. It was like a full day training. And she said, they gave us assignments to do. And she's like, at this point in life, I feel like as an adult, like we can do this on our own. We can take notes. We can really understand, take the time to process this information. We've been trained our whole lives to do this and they're still giving us assignments. And that just made me think about the situation here, which is like Krishna saying, it's not just the knowledge, it's the realization. And for a lot of us growing up, we didn't have the realizations. We just had the knowledge. We had the memorization or like, oh, someone's giving me this, I have to remember it. And I write notes, but it's just kind of comes from one ear to the other,
apple,
right?
B is for ball. You just memorize it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly like that knowledge, Shama.
Exactly. So basically the I think Krishna is saying here, it's not just about reading the book.
Right.
It's not just about like mechanically doing these things, but understanding it to a point of realization, right?
Exactly.
Understanding this deeper. And that's the kind of, that's where you get this knowledge.
I love that point because it's so true. You hear when some elevated, saintly people are on our line, they say things that maybe when you're younger, you might have said that and be like, yeah, I get it, blah, 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 whatever philosophy you're spewing. But then when they say it, it has such weight, such gravity to their words, not only when they're reciting the philosophical knowledge, when they're chanting the mantras, everything slows down. They're really tuning in and they're being receptive to deeper realizations. They might be saying the same thing as a young kid, but they'll be able to absorb it with a lot more lessons attached to those phrases, you know?
I mean, just as like when we get older, like I feel like that's something that as I've turned 30, I'm like, wow, I look back at how I perceive certain things and I'm like, the knowledge and the understanding I have now is so much greater. And like of things that are just basic things that you're like, yeah, I get that. But then you're like, wow, wait, I get that I understand. And it's like, it's really amazing. And like, we're really fortunate to have this knowledge in front of us. But honestly speaking, it's like Krishna is going to be way more knowledgeable than us. And like when I speak to like, let's say my younger sister, she's like, yeah, I get it. And like in some ways, sometimes we can be like, yeah, I get it, Krishna. But actually it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to really imbibe and
understand it. Yeah. And I think like it's like those aha moments too, where you're like, oh, okay. And I've had a lot of those just during this podcast as well. You know what I mean? Where it's like when you read it by yourself, it's like it's a little bit harder sometimes. But like when the three of us are discussing a point where I'm like, oh my God, I've read this. Right. I've read this verse maybe 75 times, but I didn't really understand it until this moment.
And that's a great point, because if someone's listening to this, they might think, oh, I can just speed through the Gita a lot faster if I just read it on my own than hear the podcast. But what we're doing here, we're sitting with each verse. We're providing a sounding board where we like kind of like put out there the verse, then we talk about it, we dissect it, we let it marinate and sizzle a little bit in our consciousness, and we extrapolate a lot more information from each text.
Yeah, and we also have goat noises too. I mean, like, when you're reading by yourself, are you making goat noises?
Do you have that?
No, you're not, right?
No. So another thing that's really funny to me, when I read this, I've read the Bhagavad Gita a couple of times, and I think one of the first times I did it with like a group of people, I was 15, but I think I was still like kind of dumb. So like I took some things from it.
I love this story.
I didn't really understand it. You know, like I took some knowledge from it. I got the general concepts of like, I'm not the body, because, you know, that's everywhere. But like the real understanding of the Bhagavad Gita didn't really come in until much later. But the point was that at one point after, you know, I was like maybe 17 or something, and someone made a joke and they said, oh yeah, you know, to find that information, you have to read the 19th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And everyone else around me laughed. And I was like, what's the joke? Like I didn't get it. And it goes to show that it takes time.
Also, the Gita only has 18 chapters.
Exactly.
That's why it's a joke.
And everyone thought it was so funny. And I was like, I am dumb.
You're not dumb. No. We'll get to the 19th chapter.
But I mean, you know, in the Mahabharata. No, but yeah, it's really cool to read it now and to like sit with it. And like, I encourage people to do this with other friends too.
Yeah.
It's so cool. The podcast gives a space for us to do this, but like this can be done just like with your friends. You read it and you talk about it and you like really try to understand it and explain it to each other. Because when you take the time to understand and explain to each other, that's when you learn the most, right?
And if you don't have any friends, we can be your friends. So
we are your friends.
Do you have any questions, please DM us on Instagram at Modern Yogi Podcast.
At Modern Yogi Podcast.
We're very friendly at the Modern Yogi Podcast.
You know, it's so funny. I have a coworker that he asked me, he's like, something you said last week, not on the podcast, we were just talking at work. He's like, something you said really stuck me about karma and reincarnation. I'd love to pick your brain about it later. He had texted me. I was like, oh, wonderful. You know, we really dove into it in at Modern Yogi Podcast. And the guy I see, he's like, I love the self-promotion. I was like, what self-promotion? I was just thinking that we explained it in the podcast much more than I'd be able to text it to you over iMessage.
Is this a coworker at your Catholic school?
Yeah.
You know the amount of bhakti that Shamli shares at her Catholic school is the amount to get her fired. But I'm so excited. I love it.
My parents are always like, you know, try not to get fired. Right? And I'm like, yeah, I got it. Krishna's got me.
You know, Shamli, you're living on the edge. I love it. I love it. It's good.
That's really funny.
You know, the beginning of the purport summarizes everything we're saying now, because they're basically saying about the power of hearing more and more about all of this knowledge and how it elevates us. But then they say the messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies. And these potencies can be realized if the topics are discussed among devotees. So there's almost like, I love the word
like what
that
we're
you
doing.
Exactly. They're like these little hidden pockets of gems, these potencies that maybe the first time you read it, it goes over your head. But the more and more you hear it and discuss it and analyze it, what we're doing here, these are uncovered to you, you know? And then it continues to say like, okay, devotees are constantly trying to engage in the service, and Krishna knows our hearts. He understands our mentality, our sincerity. And then one who is engaged in Krishna's service, Krishna gives them the intelligence with which we need to get to know him. And this reminds me actually of a question someone DM'd us on at Modern Yogi Podcast.
They were so extra.
That's the best.
Repetition is key in advertising and marketing.
And in teaching also, and just
and teaching,
the human
understanding,
knowledge.
Yeah. So this whole concept about Krishna gives us the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in association of devotees. I love that because it's not only our endeavor. This is one of the lines that we add in the component of mercy. And someone had DM'd the question like, okay, how do I kind of in so many words, get on Krishna's good side. How do I get Krishna's mercy? So I had said, you know what? It's almost like the formulas that we love using. Number one, your endeavor. I'm going to always try to study this. I'm going to try to chant, have my daily practice. Number two, sincerity. Krishna knows my heart. He knows where I'm at. And if I'm really trying here, my trying might look different than someone else's trying, but we're juggling so many balls in life. I'm really trying to prioritize this. So endeavor plus sincerity. And then the key component that we think of in the path of bhakti is mercy. Krishna, it's not just through our own, I'm going to understand this deeper than anyone. No.
Yeah. I mean, I was 15 and I thought I could understand it. And
right.
It wasn't my time. It wasn't Krishna hadn't been like, okay, yeah, go for it now.
Right.
Wait, is the equation try plus with sincerity equals mercy?
No.
What
Plus
is the-
mercy.
Plus mercy.
Equals
plus
getting
mercy?
to Krishna.
But Krishna's in charge of the mercy part.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's out of our control. So Krishna's the one that he knows our heart. He knows our sincerity. And if we put effort, then he will grant us the mercy that we need to be able to know him. He will give us the realizations. And that's a beautiful thing because that's almost like a dance. Like there's a component of Krishna's in charge of that to give us the realization to get to know him.
So, okay, just so for all the math buffs out there, okay? This word puzzle, okay?
I love the little getting ready.
So
Okay, what you going to say?
Try plus be sincere plus get a little Krishna mercy
For a lot. Yeah.
equals, what does it equal?
What does it equal? It equals...
What does it equal?
It equals getting the knowledge or the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna.
This is a great math puzzle.
Now we are getting somewhere.
With no numbers in it.
Yeah.
It just means getting to know Krishna better, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, it's like, I always think of it as just a regular relationship. It's like, okay, if you wanted to like be in a friendship with someone or be in a relationship with someone of any kind, you'd have to put effort.
Yep,
You'd have to be sincere.
Exactly.
Right?
Sincere.
And then that person would have to reciprocate to some degree.
Exactly. That's
true,
their
Right?
mercy.
So it's like, it's any
Totally.
relationship. And so then one day you reciprocate, then you can start building the relationship. Because you can't build a relationship without them wanting to be a part of it.
all those one-sided
that's
text
true.
messages that we keep sending. You know?
I mean, you see a whole bunch of blue bubbles and you don't see another bubble.
That's not gonna work
That's
out.
not
It's
going to
a
work
little
out for you.
frustrating sometimes, but yeah.
So Krishna is basically like, text me a little bit, talk to me, like bring me some
Exactly.
flowers.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be offensive to non-Apple users. Like, I'm sure, I don't know what the...
We like to be inclusive in this podcast. So
Oh my God.
maybe then your green bubbles you're sending.
Sure.
No matter how annoying.
I just shuddered. Okay, that's fine. Sorry, that came out.
Dear
but
Lord.
the point is, Priya, you're right. It's like you have to try in any friendship. You have to be sincere in any
Right.
friendship. It has to be reciprocal, and then you get to know that person a lot better.
And that's what we're trying to
Exactly.
do. We're trying to get to know Krishna. So we got to do our 2 steps and then Krishna does his steps. And then we are doing this
Right.
dance.
And discussion is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. To get there, we got to talk about it because first, in order to like try, we have to have, or in order to have sincerity, we have to have understanding, right? Like understanding of what our purpose is, like what do we want to do, where, like how, what kind of relationship do we want? Like all these things, like we have to understand ourselves, self-realization. I can't say that.
Self-realization.
Today. We sometimes get so excited before recording that just English starts faltering on us and we're just like words we can normally say.
We're also all foreigners.
Yeah, that
mean,
too.
I was born in America.
Oh, you're right. You were. Okay, you're right.
But that's okay. I screw up a lot too. That's fine. All right. What else
So
we got here?
Wait, you're the
Basically-
only American and like not really like that.
Technically, I was born in Dallas, Texas, even though my parents are both from Argentina.
Oh,
but
you're
I did
American
grow up
too.
speaking Spanish
Okay,
with them,
see.
which is why many people are like, "Oh, I can hear a subtle accent," and I'm always like, "Wow, you can." Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wait, where was our producer and our social media manager from? Born?
Abhijit, where were you
Abhijit,
born?
Where were you born?
I was born in India.
Very cool. And
Nice.
Ella, China.
China.
Woo, we have an international household over
the
here.
United Colors of Benetton of Bhakti. This is great. We are
Where's
so
that going?
international. I love this.
I love it. So basically, yeah, Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna here to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, they say. So this is described in the 9th chapter, and he's going to reveal stuff that's more confidential than ever before. And there's a nice little summary recap because, in the beginning of the Gita, first chapter is more or less us an introduction of the rest of the book. In the second and third chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Yeah, we started dipping our toes into a little more confidential topics, but the topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotional service because they bring enlightenment and Krishna consciousness. They're even more confidential. So we go getting like steps and steps closer. You know what I mean?
It makes sense because it's a relationship, right? Like if you think about it, like if I'm trying to be your best friend, the first thing I'm going to be is like, hey, what's your favorite color? That's not very confidential. You know, like friends, that's cool. Yeah, I just asked them what their favorite color is.
It's been failing miserably. I'm kidding.
That's how I start all my friendships. What's your favorite color?
What's your favorite day of the week? That's my follow-up.
But like, that's very basic, right? And then we get to like, okay, like in what, like, how do you like to spend time? And then you get deeper and deeper. And so I think that's what they're saying here. So the 9th chapter is the most confidential because it's about pure devotion.
Ooh, pure devotion. Right. So like we go getting closer and closer to Krishna's heart. So already 7th and 8th were even more confidential than the first ones. If you haven't heard, go back to the very beginning of Modern Yogi podcast and we basically break all of this down. So we're teetering on the most confidential chapter, as Priya said. It deals with unalloyed pure devotion. I Googled the word unalloyed and it said something which is not alloyed. So then I had to Google alloyed and it says past tense of alloy. And I was like, okay, what is alloy? It's basically
It means pure.
Yeah, it's pure.
You're like, what does that mean?
I know.
Wait, I know we keep telling people to listen to all of the other past episodes and whatnot, but do you think that people just randomly start listening to chapter 9?
They should not, because we go in an order. That would upset. That wouldn't upset me.
I mean, I think it would be a lot to take in if you started chapter 9.
So we're all just like, this is a secret. And they're like, what am I
But
doing
also, like,
here?
think about it from a relationship standpoint, because I like to bring it back to that. Like, imagine if I was like, so when I was a child, and you start talking about all your trauma on your first date.
We're trauma bonding on our first date. Yeah. Chapter 9 is like, we're trauma bonding with Krishna now. So we can just jump into chapter 9.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You can go there, but like, you're gonna need
it won't be as
therapy after
meaningful. It won't be as meaningful for sure. So basically, it says,
funny.
and I do like the takeaway about whenever something doesn't make sense, try to relate it to a natural relationship in this world. What's the relationship you have with an intimate partner? What are the steps you take for that? You just break it down to a very logical way. So basically, one who's situated then in this topmost confidential knowledge is naturally transcendental. And the most beautiful thing is when we get to this point, we're not thrashed around by the waves of material existence, even though we're in this material world. Now, doesn't that sound nice?
That's an image.
Right? Doesn't that sound nice?
Around. Can you say that again?
We are not thrashed around by the waves of material existence.
Dude, wow. I mean, yeah, that's intense. But you're right. You're right.
Yeah, we can stay afloat. And one next section, which I think we can break down a little, this verse has a deep significance because when you have the words idam jnanam, this are... we're gonna Priya and I probably highlighted similar things.
And I just want to say, like, think about it like this. We've talked about pure devotional service a lot.
Right.
Like, if I had to ask you without looking at the book, maybe let's ask Shama Singh Gita.
Oh my God, why me?
Because Priya and I both have our finger on the exact line, which is like, we're sitting across the table from each other, for those that don't know. And Priya and I often have this like telekinesis, like psychic thing going on where we go highlighting the same sentence. So that's why she's going to throw the mic to Shama Singh Gita.
So the point of why I'm saying this is like, we've talked a lot about devotional service, and oftentimes we come up with like, oh, like, you know, it's like, you know, offering food and this and that, right? But there's actually there's very specific things that you can do as part of devotional service.
And they break it down to 9 activities, and it's related to the text because
I'm like frantically trying to find where you guys are at in the book.
She's like trying to study last minute before the test. So the word idam jnanam, we don't read the Sanskrit part of the text, but that's in the text. They refer to pure devotional service, which basically consists of 9 different activities.
Shamli, this first one.
Hearing. What is hearing? Shama.
Ooh, when you're listening to this podcast, you're listening
at Modern
to
Yogi podcast.
At Modern Yogi podcast. When you're listening to people who are more knowledgeable than you speak about Krishna, when you're listening to kirtan, when you're listening to yourself chant japa in your own private meditation, that is hearing, yes?
That is hearing.
Very good.
Very good. Priya,
Okay.
number 2.
Number 2 is chanting.
Ooh, now chanting we've broken down into 2 separate categories. You have number 1, chanting japa, which is like your own personal conversation with Krishna. You're on a date with Krishna. So
and
to
your
speak.
personal meditation too,
Exactly.
right? It's like it's not just internal. You are saying the words out loud. You are hearing yourself say them, but it is like a personal connection, a personal relationship you have with Krishna in that way. Yeah.
Then you have number 2, kirtan, which is like communal group musical meditation. We're all calling out together. Priya, give us a little melody. Let's chant one round, one mantra.
I love when she throws it. I love when we put Priya on the spot. It makes life so interesting.
And we're about to get back to putting you on the spot, baby.
No, okay.
Yeah, okay. So give us one melody, Priya, and we'll all chime in. But this is basically kirtan, chanting where you can feel everyone's collective heart and soul just trying to get absorbed in the mantra.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Wow.
That was so beautiful.
That was
and
really
you know
nice.
what that made me think? The potency of chanting all together in a kirtan. I had heard this once. You're all putting your hearts up there. So you're receiving everyone's realization, everyone's devotion is kind of infectious. It's all there in the room as you're all shouting out. I mean, in the story that Shama Sangita brought up a few episodes ago, this woman who was almost dying. She had flashes of, in every kirtan she's done it throughout her life, she saw like there's strands of like colors coming out from the kirtan, you know?
Yep.
I got chills when I heard everyone's voice start coming in, and that was Abhijit's beautiful voice you also heard.
So deep. Did y'all feel that?
Yeah, I did.
It's like an earthquake. I liked it. It was good.
I liked it. So that was number 2. We said number 1, hearing. Number 2, chanting. And those go hand in hand because as we chant, we try to listen deeper and deeper. Okay, Priya, what's number 3?
Remembering.
Remembering what?
Krishna.
Krishna.
It says, always remember Krishna, never forget.
Isn't that the whole point? Didn't someone tell you a long time ago that what was the whole point of the Gita?
Yeah, they asked me like, oh, what's the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita? And I was like, oh, I'm 15. I don't know.
I love your 15-year-old voice, by the way. It is very cute.
Thank you very much.
I don't know. She's gotten a little more feminine over time.
Yeah, just girled it up. And they were like, the point of the Bhagavad Gita, the thing you could always remember is never forget Krishna, always remember Krishna.
That's it.
That's
Two
beautiful.
lines. That's it.
And we've said before, if you try to remember him when the times are good, that's going to kick in when the times are rough, when you're in the ultimate exam, when you're nearing the end of your life and your whole body's shutting down. What's going to kick in is what you've done every single day in and day out. So remember Krishna, never forget him.
And remembering, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think we were
remembering can be like just incorporating Krishna in your everyday activities, right? If you're if you're already listening to a love song, like make that love song in your head about Krishna, right? Yeah. If you're going to make food, make it for Krishna, like making sure that every single thing that you do, every single daily activity, whether it's like mundane or spiritual, like making that like an offering to Krishna.
I love that because you know the old song Wicked Games, it's I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you. And whenever I hear that, I start thinking about Krishna, and the more you learn about his qualities, you start thinking, and there's one line of the song, I never dreamed that I'd lose somebody like you. So that could almost be like when we lose sight of that connection we have with Krishna, we ourselves turn away from him. So we're trying to turn towards him. But that concept of making everything about Krishna, the song you're listening to, Priya, what's a song
that you listen to that that you think about Krishna. Is there a random song?
Or if you don't have one, while you think, Shama, what's the song you can think of?
Okay, so I love this one song, and I mentioned this before on the podcast. It's a 50 Cent song, okay?
Oh my God.
It's called 21 Questions.
So that's the opposite of Wicked Games?
I mean, hey, we're not here to judge each other's musical tastes.
We're here to put Krishna in everything,
Yeah,
right?
No,
Because
it's great.
it's easy to put Krishna in a love song, but is it as easy to put Krishna in a rap
Okay,
song?
so let's hear the
true.
rap. Let's hear the rap, Shama Sangeeta.
You know what? That's is some explicit lyrics that I don't want to get into. But the point is actually it's about love if you really look at the song, right? It's like, could you love me in a Bentley? Could you love me in a bus? You know, it's like loving Krishna no matter what happens in life, right? It's all about your mindset.
I love it.
Very nice. And Priya, what about you? A song. And if you can't think of one now, next episode we'll check back in.
Oh my God.
Oh, what about that were we singing? I don't know if it was you or me, but we're like that NSYNC song, Tearing Up My Heart. It's tearing up my heart.
I think you were singing that with
when
Ella.
I'm with you. Oh, never mind. See, it tears up our heart when we're
That's
not
really
with
sweet.
Krishna.
I love that. Yes.
I'm just saying, anything can be put towards Krishna.
Nice. I love that. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Under that concept of remembering him throughout everything you're doing, which is very important, Shama Sangeeta, that you brought up. We've said this before, that two people might be doing the exact same thing in their day-to-day lives, but one person's consciousness is always thinking of Krishna through his daily work, and the other person is just thinking of whatever. Oh, this is me, this is my money, my house.
Anxiety.
Right. Exactly. So it's all in our consciousness.
Yeah. So what's the next one, Shamli?
The next one is serving. Serving. That can have so many outlets. So whether you're
Volunteering.
Right. The whole Gita is a whole sliding scale. Like if you can't do this, do that. If you can't do that, do this. Like, so the goal is ultimately devotional service. We're talking to others about Krishna. We're spreading this. This one guru in our line says, throughout all relationships in your life, your main focus should be, how can I bring this person closer to Krishna? Because we know that when we're connected to our source, that's when we're the most fulfilled and happy. So it's really like we're thinking of them and what's going to bring them ultimate peace.
Yeah.
Because it's like giving pizza to a plant when you tried to make them happy with anything else, you know? That
Have you ever tried giving pizza to a plant?
Nah, maybe one time I slipped up. I don't know. Before I became a good gardener.
It doesn't work, right?
Doesn't work.
And serving can be in the most simple, sweet ways too, right? If it's cold outside, you knit a sweater for Krishna, you put it on him, right? If it's hot outside, you give him like a cold
umbrella.
glass of water or umbrella. Like, there's a little deity of Krishna that I have in my car, and when I moved to LA, it was so hot, and so those little umbrellas that you put in cocktail glasses. Like I put that next to my little deity of Krishna, and he's just under the shade of this cocktail umbrella.
so
You know what I mean? But it's
love
the
it.
thought that counts, right?
Yeah. And I love that because you know what? Having a little altar, a little sacred space within your home just helps you always start putting Krishna in the priority. We go on a walk outside, I see a flower and I think, oh, that would look cute in my altar.
And that's the next one.
Oh, what is the next one, Priya?
Worshiping.
Worshiping. Beautiful. So if you're hearing the podcast and you've stuck with us up until now and you don't have a little space in your home, try to start thinking, what could be a nice little corner or a space in my home where I could put a little picture, a little something, or ultimately down the line, get a little deity or something to make it my worshiping spiritual space.
To create that connection that so the reason these things are useful and helpful for us is because we're trying to develop a relationship with someone and we want that someone to be personable, right? And so you want to create give the attention to that someone in a physical way. So like putting an umbrella, right? Like that's taking care of someone. And so how do you do that if you don't have a physical representation?
Yeah.
Right. And so this is like a nice way to kind of connect deeper with Krishna and always think of him. It connects back to all the other ones.
Totally.
And actually every time I see your little Krishna with the umbrella, I think, oh, this little Krishna is very loved.
Yeah.
You know? And so like these little
shaded.
things.
Yeah. Very loved and shaded.
And you can start having a very personal form of worship. It's not just all these mantras and rules and regulations. You start having a relationship when you're about to leave. I know we've mentioned this in a previous episode, but I'm about to leave my house and I look at the deities, and if they're maybe not smiling as much as before, you start thinking, wait, Krishna, what's wrong? What, did I do something wrong? Or if they're smiling bigger, you think, Krishna's happy with something I must have done right. Like it's an ongoing relationship.
And it's your personal relationship. And what's interesting about having a space in your home that is dedicated to Krishna is that phrase, out of sight, out of mind, right? And it's when someone's not around, you don't think about them as much. But if you have a dedicated space in your home where it's just for Krishna and it's your space, you can put whatever you want there, right? You can it's your personal space that is your sacred place just to think about Krishna.
Right.
So whatever it is that you want to put there that helps you remember Krishna, that's your happy place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Abhijit and I once took so any form of Krishna is, well, some forms of Krishna are called deities.
Yeah.
And so we took a deity worship class once. And we started it to clarify.
Did you not get the diploma?
It was like, I don't know, we got really busy and we couldn't finish it.
That's fair.
We'll do it again another time. But it was really cool because what we got to see is they asked everyone to share what their altar or their space looked like. And it was really cool. Some people like really bling it out. It was like really fancy, really cool. And then other people were so simple. They were minimalist. They had like a nice little shelf. They had like candles and like incense and a picture of Krishna. And it was so beautiful to see how it's very personal. Right. It is very much who you are and like whatever makes you feel connected to Krishna. It doesn't have to be this or that, you know? And that was really cool to see.
That level of individualism and creativity is so beautiful because it is your personal relationship. So you can do whatever you want.
And the next one is very much connected to worship and having a home altar. What is it, ladies?
Praying.
So you know what's really nice? If you have that little space in your home, every night before you go to bed, just sit there for a moment and you can talk to your deities, to the pictures, whatever you have, in a very personal way. Krishna, this was how my day was, or in the morning, or whatever. And I have a little ukulele at home that I sometimes just spontaneously start like strumming a few little mantras and
believe that. Yep.
And that moment alone with the deities is so personal. That's where sometimes it brings the feelings of bhakti to life, you know?
Yeah.
There's so many things that's like renounce this, control that, but do the little things that are joyful and sweet on this path.
Yeah. And I also think that in this case, also like the word prayer is specifically to you know, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it, but like when you say, Krishna, please give me the intelligence to understand, or Krishna, thank you so much for this. Like it's a little bit of a conversation, right? Because like when you're talking about chanting, you're connected to Krishna, but it is very much the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, right? And so when you're talking about kirtan, it is very much Hare Krishna, you're just singing, right? But when we're talking about prayer, that's an instance to really take in the realizations you have, be grateful, or to say, Krishna, give me the strength, give me the knowledge, give me the patience, whatever it is, so that I can understand you better, so that I can do service, so that I can serve other devotees, whatever it is, right? So it's an opportunity to like sit down with your feelings and thoughts and kind of express to Krishna, whether it's gratitude or whatever it might be.
Or whatever you're dealing with is like, please give me the patience to deal with this person, or give me the strength to deal with this really hard situation that you know I'm going through. And asking for I think prayer is that time to be vulnerable, you know? I mean, so much of life and social media is like putting on this front of like, oh, my life is so wonderful, blah, 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 blah. But like Krishna knows what's in your heart. He knows and your prayers like don't have to be a front. They can be the most vulnerable expression of who you are.
I'd like to actually share, and maybe we can all share one little personal prayer that, you know, there's those ones that maybe you do consistently. So you might do the variety on a day-to-day basis, but I have like a few things that I always say that I'm inspired to want to share one little aspect of that. Before I even pray, I actually always ask if I can even pray to Krishna. So rather than like barge open the door and just start blah, 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 I sit there and I look at all my deities and I start saying, my dear, and I invoke the whole kind of different forms of Krishna. I invoke like my dear spiritual master, my spiritual teacher, dear Krishna, dear Srimati Radharani, which is the feminine form of divinity, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. So there's different forms of Krishna in our line. So I try to invoke all of them. And then I say, can I please pray to you? Can I please talk to you right now? And I look at them for a minute.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet. That's the mood that one should do. I just come in, I barge through the door. I'm like, Krishna, did you hear about what so-and-so said to me? Can you believe that? So like, I really need to embody your mood.
I tried to, you know, like back to what we said in the beginning, they're a real relationship we're trying to have. So I start off with that. Can I please pray to you? And then one thing I always say throughout every prayer, no matter what variation that day holds, I always say, my dear Krishna, can you please remove all the obstacles of my mind and my heart so that you can allow me to love you even deeper and also feel your love even deeper? You know my heart better than anyone, so please remove all of those things that just get in the way from what's really important.
Wow.
So
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Very,
how they
very
say
sweet.
when you hear something poetic in like Indian poetry, you say "Vah." That's
Maybe that comes from voila.
I spent too much time with my family this past 2 weeks, and so like as soon as she said that, I was like, "Wow, that was really good."
That's really funny.
Okay, so where
next
are we?
one is obeying. Ooh, obeying. Maybe to me, what comes to mind is obeying the instructions of your spiritual teachers and well-wishers that try to give you guidance of what ultimately is going to help you. It's not like obeying something that is not for your own good.
Yeah, and it's also obeying things that Krishna talks about in the Gita. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't eat too much or eat too little. Don't sleep too much. Don't sleep too little. Like,
Exactly.
balance work and recreation. You know, like all of these things. Like, he's giving us life lessons in this book. And I think in order for us to have the experiment work for us, we do need to obey these things.
Totally.
And there's something that you mentioned in a previous episode, Shamali, that I loved. It's like you don't need to pick out the bad parts of like your character and all of your terrible flaws or whatnot. I mean, I'm talking about everybody, right? So like you don't need to pick it out of a glass, right? You just add more devotion and good stuff into the clean water, and then slowly all that bad stuff will filter out, right?
Exactly.
I love that.
And Priya, what are the last couple there that I think is on a whole
kind
nice
of combined.
Boom.
Maintaining friendship and surrendering everything.
Ooh, okay.
That's
Maintaining friendship. You know, having friends like you guys on this path is inspiring to want to, on the days where there are days where it's going to be blissful and days where it's a struggle. And when you have a support system on the days when it's a struggle, knowing that you can go and connect with this support system inspires you to want to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were looking for that, send us a DM, because I'm sure that there's
We can be your friends.
We, of course, us, but there's also like wherever you are in the world,
There's communities.
There's communities, right? And it's just a matter of
point.
like taking a leap of faith and reaching out to certain communities, certain temples, or yoga groups, or whatever is in your community, and taking that faith, like that first step to build that community.
Exactly. And surrendering everything. So that sounds like a big, bold statement, but that can be even a simple shift in your consciousness. I know none of this is mine. Thank you, Krishna, for all of this.
Yeah. And like letting go of control, right? Like that's one of the hardest ones. So when it says surrendering everything, it's like, this is relevant to so many aspects of our lives, but
we
we're
could talk
always,
about this a lot.
Yeah,
actually.
we're always talking about, or we're always thinking like, oh, what's going to happen with my life next? Am I going to do this? I'm going to do that. Like we're trying to control every aspect, even like how everything that happens in our lives. And we just want to know, and we just want to control. And like, so Krishna is saying you surrender and you trust me. That's devotional service. Because at the end of the day, devotional service is just a way to get to know Krishna better. And these are all love languages.
Yeah,
These
it
are
is all
all
love languages.
You know, these are all just ways to connect deeper. So surrendering and trusting that Krishna has your back is very difficult, but it's also like, so it's like a weight off your shoulders.
Exactly.
When you can let go and not have to control everything.
Totally. Because I love that point that is a weight off your shoulders, because if you visualize Krishna's hand in your life is like a current, and just let go and go with the current, the waves that Krishna's orchestrating in your life, you're not going to drown. You're going to stay afloat, and he's going to take you where you're meant to be. I think a few years ago, I couldn't have at least imagined all of us sitting here doing this right now.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah.
And Krishna divinely orchestrated everything. He gave Priya the inspiration. She corralled us all. She orchestrated this. Like
She herded us.
She herded us
like goats. I'm like trying to get him to do the sound, but he's not doing the sound.
Don't worry, I did it when Abhijit didn't want to. So he's creating all of these currents in our lives and making everything happen, and it's just going along with that.
Yeah. We have little floaties, these Bhakti
We have
Yogi
these Bhakti floaties.
you know.
I love that.
Keeps us afloat.
So basically, by the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, which I love how Priya said they're like love languages, one is elevated to the spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. And when our heart is then able to be cleared of all this material contamination, then we can begin to understand the science of Krishna.
That's amazing. And so that's basically Prabhupada telling us, explaining to us what the mood of all of this is about to be, understanding our position and everything, because Krishna's about to share the gems, right? This is chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. And we're going to start with text 2 next episode. Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you for listening.
See you next time.
Bye. Hello, beautiful souls. If you like what you're hearing, please follow us on Instagram at Modern Yogi Podcast.
And if you love what you're hearing, please make sure to share a link to our podcast at Modern Yogi Podcast with all your friends, families, and long lost cousins.
And if you have any questions at all, send us a DM on Instagram at Modern Yogi Podcast, and we'll be sure to get back to you.
Thank you for listening to
The Modern Yogi.